Hey, friends, welcome back to the Do Cool Shit podcast. As always, it's me, Meryl. And today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about because it's so fun. So fun in a sarcastic way, but it really is, and it's a really interesting topic. It happens for people all the time. People talk about it all the time, and I think it's deeply misunderstood as well. So, today we're going to talk about self-sabotage. And something I want to just lay out first and foremost is that self-sabotage is not a weakness. Although everybody associates it with negativity, it at its core is your brain, your systems trying to protect you. It is just taking what you know up until that point and what has worked for you up until that point, what's familiar, and it is using it as a self preservation method. It's just an outdated tool. It's like when your iPhone, or if you're an Android user, I don't know how that works. I'm an iPhone person. But when it's like, hey, we're ready for an update, it's updating and it's using new software. And when you're self-sabotaging, you're using old software. So we're gonna go through, what self-sabotage is at its core and how it shows up for people. And I'm going to use some very real examples from other people I've worked with, from my own life, and something that happened kind of in a weird, unexpected way with self sabotage for me in the past week. And we're also going to talk about how to spot the difference between actual self care and self sabotage wearing a self care mask. So, first, let's dive into what self sabotage actually is. Again, it is self protection. Self sabotage is your nervous system protection mechanism. It is not you being lazy or weak or undisciplined. And this is, I think, is a lot of the reason why people are like, I don't understand why I self sabotage. Guess what, friend? By the end of this episode, you're gonna have a better understanding of why this happens and how to navigate around it and not actually follow through with self sabotage, or just how to learn from it so you can recognize what's happening. So it's your brain choosing familiar discomfort over unfamiliar growth. The behaviors that sabotage you actually worked at some point. They supported you at some point. They kept you safe. They helped you survive. They protected you from something. Your brain is always going to prioritize familiar. So even if familiar means staying stuck or stressed or small, it's familiar. It's predictable. Your brain is going to prioritize that. Discomfort, especially in maybe higher stress times, feels unsafe. And again, this is something that I'm going to help you to be able to improve upon and work through these things. An example here is for a lot of people, quitting when things get hard feels familiar. If you're someone who has been stuck in that all or nothing, black or white thinking, this is something I see all the time in especially areas of health and fitness. It's a mindset that a lot of people carry around. Quitting when things get hard or feel uncomfortable or feel uncertain is familiar. Staying when things get hard feels dangerous. You don't know what's going on. So quitting is the familiar, easier choice that a lot of people do. And the thing about self sabotage is, that feels correct a lot of the time. Your nervous system thinks we've survived it this way before. So why risk something new? I'm going to do it in the same way. So this is a little bit into why that happens. And why past strategies stop working is because what protected you then won't necessarily propel you forward now. The coping mechanisms that got you through things like childhood, like early career or past challenges are now becoming that stopping point, the ceiling, the roadblock that keep you stuck a lot of the time. For example, maybe food was a reward when you were a kid. That was something that worked really, really well at that point. It was a reward for when you did well in sports or on a test or something like that. But at this point in your life, using food as a reward is not something that is helping you feel better about yourself, propel yourself forward in your body composition goals, your health goals, how you feel. Maybe trying to do it all at some point in your life really supported you in doing great things, in getting graduating college or graduating high school or, getting a job interview or accomplishing great things. But at this point, trying to do it all is something that leads to burnout and feeling like a failure. These strategies worked until they didn't. And again, now they are the obstacle. Self sabotage also is kind of sneaky because it can look like self care. Let me let me set up the scenario here for you. This is an appropriate time because we're heading into October where there's a lot of busyness coming up. There's a lot of holidays and just stuff going on. So, this is a season where stress can be a bit higher, and maybe you know that. You're being pulled in multiple directions. The tools and habits work suddenly feel like extra weight. They feel like extra things to do. You know that you have a lot of stuff going on. You know that it's going to be chaotic and you're like I can't do all of these things. How am I going to do all of these things? So there's this thought that sounds really reasonable and it is secretly self-sabotage. Let's walk through a couple things and unpack them. I just need to take a break right now. I hear this a lot from people in coaching. And that sounds like rest. It sounds like self-compassion, but it actually might be avoidance of discomfort that is disguised as self-care. You've taken breaks before, and even if your thought is like, "Oh, I'll return to this, I'll do the things, I'll come back," you don't. If you really think about the patterns before, it's like, no, that was me just avoiding. If you say, I'll get back to my goals when life slows down, it sounds like you're being realistic about your capacity, but it actually might be you waiting for perfect conditions that never arrive. I just had this conversation with one of my clients where she's like, I just keep thinking that things will slow down and then I'll be able to do all the things. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the reality, right? The truth is that life doesn't slow down. You learn to move through it. And if it does slow down, then you let yourself be in it. But, aligning expectations there. I'm failing or I'm falling behind. I need to catch up before I do more. This sounds like getting organized. It sounds like strategy or being strategic, but it actually might be perfectionism, right? That is just keeping you kind of frozen because you are never going to feel caught up. If you're behind now, you're always going to feel like you're playing catch up and you're never going to feel like you're at the point that is good enough to start that thing. And if perfectionism is at play, then that's a whole other slew of things going on there too. I need to this is something that one of my clients had said to me a couple years ago. I need to make the best choice for myself and my well-being and take this off my plate. And she was referring to coaching. And that sounds like healthy boundaries. But in actuality, it was her removing the exact thing that would actually support her from her plate. There was there's this short-term comfort, long-term regret, long-term disconnection from goals that would have happened. And I will say this is something that's happened with people I've worked with in the past where they're like, nope, this is the right choice for me. I'm going to move away. And that's fine. Everybody has to move through this at their own pace. This particular client, we had this conversation about a year and a half ago, and she recognized that this was self-sabotage, and holy shit, she's freaking rocking it. And that was actually a very pivotal moment for her. But I digress. So, again, why these thoughts are just really sneaky, tricky little thoughts is because they feel logical, they feel kind, they do offer immediate relief. Your ego feels more comfortable, but they don't actually align with who you want to be, who you're trying to become, your goals in general, very likely not your values either. So these are things to think about. At the end, I'm going to give you tools and I'm going to add some questions into the notes also in reflection here. But if you're ever having these thoughts that pop up where it feels logical, it feels kind, it feels like self-care, dig into it a little bit more. Play these things out. If I stop doing this, in reality, what's going to happen? Like, think critically, gain some perspective, and not just thinking about that immediate relief. Think about the future as well. A lot of people will not do that. And when they do, bullshit happen. So, for me, here's a little bit of a different pattern of self-sabotage, because self-sabotage is a pattern. It is something that you do repeatedly. And you could think about this in your life where this has happened, and then you can actually use that to support yourself in it not happening in the future. But this was a pattern that I did not see coming and was able to dig into and suss out in the past week, where I hit a freaking wall, figuratively. I didn't, although I'm a very clumsy person, even though I'm very athletic and kinesthetically aware, um, and do run into walls, this was a figurative thing. Um, so this was something that kind of came at a different angle for me. Instead of like removing what supports me, I refused to add in what I really needed. Like, I came to a point where I was just exhausted on every single level. I was feeling a little depressed. I was making oatmeal the other morning and just started to cry because I had all of these feelings and emotions and just like chaos come out. And what led up to this was I would identify, like, as a high achiever. And I've talked about this before. If you're someone that can relate, this is something to listen up to. And this is something that I'm going to be working on for myself moving forward. I've had this thought, and I thought about patterns. This happened last year at this time, where it's like, I don't need to take breaks. I'm just going to keep on going. I feel like pretty darn solid, especially in this past year. I was like, I feel really solid. I feel really great. I'm just going to keep on pushing. I can keep going. I don't need to build in breaks. I'll build in breaks later. There's all these things coming up. I'm going to be taking time off during these XYZ times. So, it's all good. And I kept pushing without building in time away. And I ran into a wall. This was something where I have a lot of balls in the air, as my mom likes to say. I'm juggling a lot of things, and it's really challenging for me to I don't wanna drop any balls. I want all of those suckers to stay up in the air, because if I drop a ball, then I don't feel like I'm in integrity. I don't feel like I'm doing well. I feel like I let other people down. So this is something where I'm talking about strategically building in time away, vacations where I'm not working, where I step away from like all of the high demands and build in time, all the things that I preach to other people. And last week I just started to feel, I'll be very, very brutally honest, unmotivated, and didn't really wanna show up. I did. I did show up, and I showed up to the best of my capacity, and I got really narrowed into the priorities. I did not drop balls, but I was not feeling like I was myself. I didn't feel motivated to do the things that usually light me up. I was feeling like I was failing in every single area of my life. I felt disconnected to others and myself, and I was just feeling very, very blah. Oh, that breeds a lot of other feelings, and I'm not gonna dive into that. I'm still kinda working through this, so let me not tangent into that. But what I kind of, have sussed out through all of this exploration, I was trying to protect myself by staying productive, by proving my worth through my output, by being reliable, by staying committed and dedicated to the things that I very intentionally put into my life. And all of these things have worked really, really well for me. And a lot of the time they are me in integrity. I would say like 98% of the time, if not more, like all of these things in my life, or I would say 100%, as long as I'm doing it correctly and I'm in choice. But not taking time off is not something that serves me. It actually destroys me. Not taking breaks felt familiar. Taking breaks felt unfamiliar. It feels unsafe still, even though I've done it before. Scheduling time off meant that I was going to drop a ball somewhere and let someone down. These are like uncomfortable truths or things that was like a narrative that was going on in my mind. Rest felt like a weakness in some aspect. These aren't like actual truths. These are beliefs that I had going on. So my brain just kept choosing the familiar pattern, push, just keep pushing. You can do this. I have a very large capacity because of all the skills and tools that I have, where on the day to day, I am truly self caring. I'm caring for myself. I'm leaning into nutrition. I am moving my body. I'm prioritizing sleep. I'm hydrating myself. I journal, all of these things. But there's other things that were lacking. And proactive recovery is definitely one of them. So I was literally sabotaging my energy, my health, my relationships, long term capacity by refusing to do the thing that I needed, which was pre-scheduled in breaks to my year. And the irony is I teach this stuff. Something I always come back to, and what one of my friends asked me this morning was, well, what would you tell your clients? And I'm like, oh yeah, I would tell them to do exactly what I didn't do, right? I know this stuff. And I still did it because self-sabotage is sneaky as hell, and it knows exactly which thoughts will sound reasonable to you specifically. And for me, it was, like taking breaks means you're not committed. And it means like if you want these things, so you got to keep pushing. You can't let people down. So at this point, and what I've done recently is, asking myself, like I've thought through everything, but asking myself some completing the thought questions. What actually happens if I keep going without breaks? I am going to burn out. I'm going to resent my work. I'm going to show up poorly for my clients. I'm not going to do anything particularly well or to the extent that I know I can do. Does this align with where I want to be? Absolutely not. I want sustainable energy. I want to love what I do. I want to show up fully and not be forcing myself to do it. Will I be proud of this choice? Fuck no. I will feel like I am portraying myself, and I will actually feel like I am not walking the walk in the things that I tell others. So I actually feel like I would not be in integrity if I didn't build in time off for myself. So now I know this is something that I need to do, right? I had to do what I am teaching you. I will continue to walk the walk and be brutally honest in what shows up in my life and how I support others in navigating this in their life. So I need to adjust my approach. I need to really embody my values. I need to stay connected even when it feels uncomfortable. And that's what we're gonna dive into next. So sorry, I'll try not to sing to you ever again. Um, the discernment tool. So this is where I would say, again, ask yourself these questions that I had asked myself. What actually happens if I follow through with this choice? Does it align with where I want to be, or does it create more stress down the line? Will I feel proud and supported, or will I feel even more lost behind, guilty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, later? Here are some very simple examples of things that have shown up for people I've worked with in here. So the thought is tracking macros feels like too much right now. I need to take time away from nutrition and I'll get back to it later. Completing the thought, have I done this before? Uh did I get back to it? And usually for people it's yep, I've done that. I did not get back to it. I felt worse. What are your goals in here? One of the goals is to build resilience and stop removing supportive habits when obstacles appear. Yeah, okay. Um, this move doesn't align with that. Taking tracking away makes your ego comfortable, but actually removes awareness. And so the realization is, you know what? That is not supportive. That is a pattern that I don't want to repeat. So there's this pattern recognition moment. Self sabotage often feels like the comfortable choice, but it's comfort that keeps you stuck. It's choosing familiar over aligned. So, what to do instead? There's a few strategies in here. Strategy one, adjust the goal to meet you where you are. It's not all or nothing, it's all or something. If tracking feels like too much, then hey, let's focus on protein at each meal. Let's focus on snacks being from whole foods. Let's focus on eating slowly. There's so many different ways that we could approach nutrition in ways that align, even if tracking doesn't feel like the right answer. Staying connected to the goal in different ways beats abandoning it every single time. If you can't do a workout, do 15 minutes. If you can't meal prep for 5 days, prep for 1 to 2. Um, strategy two, check if your thought is about control or fear. Sometimes self sabotage is fear of something, fear of imperfection. If I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. Letting go of all or nothing creates space to succeed even when life feels chaotic. And imperfect action is going to be better than perfect inaction, right? Your bigger why. This is another strategy. Why did you start in the first place? I talk about this all the time where like having a deep, deep, deep why, a purpose, go to that. The long-term version of you deserves the effort. I had a client say this the other day where it's like tracking feels hard to do and I don't necessarily want to do it, but myself and my goals are worth the effort, even in smaller doses. Connect to the future you're building, not just the immediate discomfort you're feeling. This isn't necessarily about like in that moment, it's about the trajectory. Strategy 4, identify the values behind the habits or behaviors. Sometimes life makes certain things impossible or inconvenient to do. When you can't do that, what can you do? How can you embody the value? So if I can't go to the gym, but I want to go to the gym because it helps me with my health, with my strength. So if, let's say, health is the value, then you know what? I can't go to the gym today. Shit happened, whatever it may be. How can I embody health? I can pay attention to my nutrition. I can drink water throughout the day. I can prioritize my sleep tonight. I could go for a walk. This reinforces who you're becoming, who you being who you want to be versus abandoning that version of yourself. And you're not like starting over in here. You're staying connected. Being flexible is huge. So make a commitment to yourself to be flexible. You do not need to be perfect. You do need to stay connected and aligned. Self sabotage thrives when we disconnect and choose comfort. Cool shit happens when we stay flexible and do it differently. So, reframing self sabotage. Again, the truths about self sabotage is it's not a character flaw. It's just that outdated programming that I made a pretty bad metaphor to earlier, but you get the gist. The strategies that protected you before are now the patterns holding you back. Recognizing this is the first step to changing it. What real strength looks like in here. Not just going on autopilot. In my case, not powering through at all costs, not being perfect, staying connected to your goals, even when it's messy, especially when it's messy. Choosing aligned alignment over comfortable, doing it differently instead of not doing it at all or doing what you've done before. For me, real strength was admitting that I needed breaks, not proving that I could go without them. So, your invitation is to notice your thoughts, complete them, critically think through them. Ask yourself, is this actually supportive or is this sabotage wearing a disguise? Choose the version that aligns with who you're becoming or who you want to be. Stay flexible, stay connected, do the cool shit, whatever that may be in there. And remember that even when you know this stuff, you're still going to catch yourself doing it. That's so human of you. The win here is catching it sooner and adjusting or catching yourself while you're doing it versus allowing it to kind of play out and then create this narrative for you. So, again, like doing the cool shit, I've said this before and I've said it throughout the episode, is asking yourself those questions. That is your challenge as you go into the future. This may not happen for you in the next week, but what you could do in the next week is thinking about patterns that have occurred for you. A question that I would ask: what have you done before? When you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're pissed off. That sabotages your goals. Or if you're really wanting something for yourself, like you want to be consistent, you want long-term progress, you want a lifestyle change, you want body composition changes. When you've entered into areas of working on your fitness, working on your nutrition, changing aspects in your behaviors, your lifestyle, etc., what patterns are there that you can recognize? Why did they happen? What stories were you telling yourself when those things didn't stick? So those are things you could immediately do in this next week. If you're going through what you think may be self sabotage, complete the thoughts. Again, I will put these questions into the notes so you can have them. And then I will also add in a couple more reflection questions that can support you in this as well. So, self sabotage, it really is one of my favorite topics. It is so complex and it is something that just pops up often for people. And I hope that now you have a little bit of a better understanding of where it comes from, maybe why you do it, and then some tools to navigate it moving forward. As always, if you have any questions, if there's anything that you want support in with navigating self sabotage, because I will say that one really, really powerful tool when it comes to navigating self sabotage is having perspective and someone else being there for you in like a professional setting or a very close setting will absolutely help you with that. So I am here if you want to talk more about it. And other than that, go do the cool shit. As always, cool shit is on the other side of doing. Take action in here because nothing changes if you do not. And I will catch you next time.